Hey everyone, in today's guide, I'm going to show you how to cheat your way to winning any trade in mid lane by following a simple rule, exploiting cooldowns in lane. The idea here is that when your opponent's scariest ability, or most important one, is on cooldown, you will exploit this window and win the trade. This is easily the most important and underrated skill to master to win trades. Wow, SkillCapped, thanks for stating the obvious. We know that's what you're thinking, but before you type that comment, we're going to test if you actually know what the scariest abilities are and what their cooldowns are. So stick around. Alright, so let's just jump into our first game here where I'm on my main account in Grandmasters as Zed vs Set. If you don't play these champions, don't worry, we're going to have plenty of examples with a bunch of different matchups. But in this matchup, I can't really walk up to the wave. Set will E me and chunk me very hard, so I'm just going to play safe and try to farm with Q into level 3. We're going to speed through this a bit though. Now, I'm going to farm this wave on the tower and it will rebound back to Set, which is also when I will be hitting level 3. Then, we have some good stuff to talk about. Alright, now we're both level 3. And I don't really want to use my W right now. I just want to save it and let the wave stack up. If I use my W, which is my most important cooldown, I'm extremely vulnerable if I try to walk up for CS and Set contests me. I have no way of escaping and I would just lose the trade. Every champion has one of these very important abilities like Zed's W that leaves them open to trades when it's down. For melee champions, Fizz E, Diana Q, Kiana W are good examples. For ranged, Syndra E, Ryze W, or LeBlanc W. All these abilities are crucial to their champion's mobility, safety, or damage. It will always be matchup dependent on how you're supposed to use them though. For example, in the Zed vs Echo matchup, Zed's W should be used defensively whenever Echo jumps in with E. He wants to WEQ backwards and make sure Echo doesn't proc his 3-hit passive. But Zed vs LeBlanc is different and he wants to be aggressive with his W. Either way though, Zed's W is his most important ability to play around, whether you're the one playing him or if you're against him. Alright, back to the gameplay now. Set knows I'm about to go for this cannon minion. I could just use Q on it, but since I saw him running at me, I wanted to use WEQ to trade and grab the CS at the same time. Creep block made me get clipped by his E just barely though, which isn't good. Even with this bad situation, I have to trade back as much as I can, so I use my E and Qs, and should have swapped my W early to dodge his W, but I swap after to get one last auto up. So obviously I lost that trade really hard, right? But here's where you have to have the game knowledge and play around cooldowns. Set's most important abilities to play around are his E and W, each for different reasons. His E is his gap closer, basically, and it lets him get on top of me, and his W can block all of my bursts so I can never burst him if it's up. He just used both, so I have a window to trade. Do you know how long the cooldowns are for each of these abilities? If you don't know the exact cooldown, it's alright, especially if it's a longer cooldown, but if you're any more than 1 or 2 seconds off, it could be a big deal. But Set's W is an 18-second cooldown, and his E is 16 seconds. So basically, I will have a clock going in my head whenever those abilities are down, so I know what plays I can make. Now let's restart the fight, put the clock on the screen, and watch what happens. So, because I had my Conqueror fully stacked and his W and E were down, I ignited for Nimbus Cloak movement speed to catch up to him, then finished him with a passive auto and E plus ignite, then flashed out to the brush to drop minion aggro. Before we continue, I do quickly want to make sure you all know about SkillCapped. We have the most league guides on the internet, and we're the only ones that offer a money back guarantee if you don't improve by 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped. We do this because our service really does work, so check us out after this. So let's move on to another example now. This time from my own point of view on a gold smurf. The matchup is going to be Ryze vs Karma. Neither of these champions have any long cooldowns, but I'm going to show you how important it is to still play around the cooldowns, even if they're small ones. It's one of, if not the most important part of laning. So Karma has one main ability that is obvious you want to try to avoid, her Q. She can also empower the Q with her ult, but the Q cooldown is still the most important. Do you know the cooldown of Karma Q? The cooldown is 8 seconds, which isn't too long, but long enough that you can easily play around it. So as laning starts, notice how I'm sitting back here, making sure to keep minions between Karma and myself. She has her ult and Q up, so I don't want to do anything yet. If she moves to the other side of the lane like this, I also move to make sure minions are between us. Then, when I see Karma walk up for these last hits, I try to sneak in a W, but quickly back off since I figured her Q was coming. Now this is the important part. In high elo, the Karma would play back until her Q came back up, or was about to come back up. But in low elo, players don't play around cooldowns at all, so it's very easy to exploit this. This next little trade is a perfect example. Karma uses Q, so I know I have 8 seconds. I first try to grab my last hits, then I walk up and use my W on Karma with an auto attack, then back away. She used an auto on me back there, but I won the trade nicely because I had the cooldown advantage and she didn't respect it. It doesn't end here though, you have to play around their cooldowns and your own. Since my W is down and her Q is coming up in 2 seconds, now I have to play safe and avoid her Q until my W is up, so I can at least trade back if she walks at me. That's why I'm playing way back here now. And it looked like she tried to mantra Q through the gap in the minions, but it got clipped, so now her Q is down again for 8 seconds. Now the window for me to trade is open just like before, and as expected, she doesn't respect this and I get another free W on her. But I know her Q is coming up very soon, so I don't greed for an auto attack and just back away. So just from those 2 trades where I use W when her Q is down, look at the health difference between us. I'm winning very hard. I'm going to hit level 2 first though, and look to trade with her with my level advantage. But as I do, she also levels up, so I just throw Q and back off to dodge her Q. I don't look to trade with her when her Q is down here, because I don't know what ability she got second. If she got her shield, she would just shield my W damage, then her minions would win the trade for her, so I just focus on grabbing last hits. But she uses Q again here on the CS, so when she walks off for this last hit, I quickly use W before she can shield it. And since she wasted her shield there, not shielding anything, I go in further knowing I'm going to eat a Q in the process. But I'm going to be hitting her with 2 of my abilities, so I know I will win the trade. To be honest, the minions did most of the damage here because I got greedy for that last auto attack. Then with my big health advantage, I look for an all-in on the Karma, not knowing she had Ignite. I thought she had TP, so I could have potentially died here. But I flashed late to try to finish her off because I was trying to catch her without using flash, basically just being greedy because I'm smurfing, and this lets her shield come up, but she trolls flashing in anyways. Alright, so this game was a good example of how to play around shorter cooldowns instead of the big ones like ZW or Fizz. So now you know what it's supposed to look like, but I'm sure a lot of you think you already do this, so let's open up a gold game and see if the mid laners actually play around cooldowns. The matchup here is Talon vs Fizz, 2 melee assassins. A perfect example of where cooldowns are extremely important. Do you know the important ability for both champions and the cooldowns of them? For Talon, his W is the most important because it adds 2 stacks of his passive, and the cooldown is 9 seconds. For Fizz, it's his E, and the cooldown on that is 16 seconds at rank 1. With that being said, let's get into the gameplay. Talon is going to walk up to Fizz here and use W. Now Fizz has a 9-second window to look for a trade on Talon without being punished. Talon should respect this, especially since he has no last hits he needs to go for. He just needs to wait for his W cooldown, which is 4 seconds away. But he walks up anyways, and Fizz grabs the last hit and hits the Talon with E at the same time, so Talon just took free damage. Fizz could have auto-attacked first, then E, then another auto to proc electrocute to chunk Talon much harder, but either way, this wasn't good for Talon. But then, Talon could still trade back here because Fizz is walking up for this last hit when Talon W is just 1 second away. So if he just runs towards Fizz here and throws W when it's up, he can land it both ways and get some nice damage. But he's going to shove the wave under tower now, so let's speed through this a little bit. Alright, now Talon is going to throw W like this and Fizz uses E to dodge it. So when Talon W comes up, Fizz E will still have 8 seconds. So Talon has a window now while Fizz farms under tower. And to my surprise, he actually takes advantage of it beautifully, punishing Fizz 1 second before his E comes up. Sadly, he takes 2 tower shots and gets ganked right after, throwing away the big advantage, but either way, he did miss some windows to trade, especially at level 1, but did an alright job after that. Remember guys, it's all about being consistent with these fundamentals. That's when you start climbing fast. You might play around cooldowns sometimes, but you need to be doing it consistently. Moving on to this last example now, where it's my point of view again, where I'm on my Smurf and gold. I'm playing Vi versus Ahri, and if you don't know, I like to play Vi mid sometimes as she actually has very strong laning. But anyways, right off the bat, we have an example of playing around cooldowns. So Ahri is going to use her Q like this, meaning she can only harass me with auto attacks. My passive shield is up, which will trigger when I use my E, so I walk up, let Ahri hit me, and use my E to poke her and pop my shield. Then I just stand there and let her hit me while my minions do the rest. I poke her a few more times using my E though, and got a huge health advantage while still having 3 potions. Then she uses Q in the wave like this, so just like before, I can walk right up to the wave and pop my shield and poke her. Then I hit level 2 first, connect with my Q, and get first blood. Then, a little bit later, at level 3, we have another example here of playing around cooldowns. This concept is extremely important in melee vs range matchups, especially when the ranged champion has self-peel with CC like Lux Q, Ahri Charm, or Syndra E. As Vi, if I try to Q in on any of these champions, I will be easy to hit by their CC, then they can just use their range to punish me while I try to run away. So watch what I do here to get around that. First, I'm going to poke a little with E and hit level 4. Then, I'm going to juke around a bit, trying to feel out what Ahri is going to do next. I'm thinking she's going to use Q, so I'm just trying to avoid it. She uses it as expected, and now that it's down, I want to look to fight. but she has her E. Do you know the cooldown of REE? It's her most important ability in lane. REE cooldown is 12 seconds, so if she uses it, I have a 12-second window to look for an all-in, or just make her give up CS. To make her use her E, I walk like this, making sure no minions are blocking the charm. This baits her into using it, and as soon as she does, I charge up Q and go all in, getting a huge chunk of her health. And because I went in right after she used E, and not, let's say, 6 or 7 seconds later, it's not coming up anytime soon, and she can't really damage me while I back off. Alright guys, so as you can see, playing around cooldowns is extremely important. It's probably the most important thing to learn to start winning lane more often, and low elo players rarely exploit this like high elo players do. Alright guys, remember, if you're serious about improving, then be sure to check out SkillCapped. We have over 1,600 guides, 600 live challenger commentaries, and live coaching with top tier coaches. Thanks for watching!